Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This is me, Atiq Ahmed. Today we are going to study the topic excretion. Metabolism of various foods, for example, carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, as well as of various chemicals, for example, drugs, toxins, etc. etc. Similarly, the breakdown of nucleic acids, vitamins, etc. etc. These all basically results in the production of toxic byproducts. Now, these various toxic byproducts includes carbon dioxide, which is produced as a result of breakdown of carbohydrates. Similarly, water is produced as a byproduct. Similarly, amino groups are produced during the breakdown of nucleic acids and proteins, and that amino group then produced ammonia by combining with hydrogen. So these all toxic byproducts are produced during the process of metabolism of food and various chemicals. Among these all, the most toxic one are basically the nitrogen containing wastes, which are produced as a result of metabolism of proteins and nucleic acids. Proteins are basically made of amino acids. So first the proteins are broken down to amino acids. Then the amino acids are further broken down, so as a result amino group is released, and that amino group then combined with hydrogen to form ammonia, which is very much toxic. Now various organisms then release this amino group either in the form of ammonia or urea or uric acid, depending on habitat and availability of water. Similarly, when nucleic acids are broken down, so nucleic acids basically contain nitrogenous bases. Nitrogenous bases are then broken down to produce amino group, which is then converted to ammonia. Now, depending on the organisms and availability of water, either the nitrogen will be either released in the form of ammonia or urea or uric acid. It depends on the availability of water, and which in turn depends on the habitat. Those organisms which live in water, particularly freshwater animals, they have excess of water, so they can release their nitrogen in the form of ammonia. But terrestrial organisms have the problem of water supply, so they comparatively have less availability of water, so they will release their nitrogenous waste in the form of urea. Similarly, there are certain invertebrates and birds, they have still very much less availability of water, so they release their waste product in the form of uric acids. So the nitrogenous waste basically consists of these three types: ammonia, urea and uric acids. Now, depending on the habitat of the organisms, they will either release their nitrogenous waste in the form of ammonia or urea or uric acid. Now we are moving toward the teaching points. The primary nitrogenous waste product in the animal, that is ammonia. Ammonia is basically a very small and toxic molecules. Now, depending on the availability of water, the animals will either decrease their nitrogenous waste in the form of ammonia, which is the most toxic, or either they will convert the ammonia to urea, that is comparatively lesser toxic, or still they will convert the urea into uric acid, which is the least toxic. But this all depends on the availability of water. Ammonia basically require large amount of water to be dissolved and to be excreted. Ammonia require 500 ml of water. So for the removal, for the excretion of nitrogen in the form of ammonia require 500 ml of water, while the removal of nitrogen in the form of urea require just 50 ml of water. And still another case is the removal of nitrogen in the form of uric acid it requires just 1 ml of water. So dependent on the availability of water, the organism will either excrete ammonia if more water is available in the habitat in which the organism is living. Those organisms which live in the moderate water supply, they will excrete urea in place of ammonia. And still there are others which have very scarce, very limited availability of water, so they will release uric acid as their excretory product. Now, relationship between the excretory products and habitats. The exact nature of excretory product to be excreted is based mainly on the availability of water, as we have already discussed, which is again based on the habitat. Now, how the correlation of habitat and product will made. So the correlation with habitat is ammonia is usually released as an excretory product in aquatic animals. Urea is usually excreted as a excretory product as a nitrogenous waste in the aquatic and terrestrial organism. Still, uric acid, it is usually released as a nitrogenous waste by the terrestrial organisms. Now we will study these one by one. Ammonia. Ammonia is a highly toxic molecule as it raises the pH of body fluids, because ammonia is slightly basic in nature. It is weak base. So whenever the concentration of ammonia rises in the body fluids, so it will raise the pH of the body fluids, and it will in turn disturb the membrane transport functions. Now it is highly soluble in the water and it diffuses very quickly across the cell membrane. If availability of water is there, so then it is very highly soluble in water and it will very quickly diffuse out across the cell membrane. Therefore, it is excreted very rapidly whenever the water availability is there, particularly in freshwater organisms where the water is available in large amount. Similarly, there are certain marine organisms which have high availability of water, so they release their excretory products, nitrogenous waste, in the form of ammonia. Now, we have already discussed that 1 gram of nitrogen in the form of ammonia requires 500 ml of water to dissolve it to the non-toxic level. So such large amount of water can be supplied only by the aquatic organism and particularly the freshwater animals, where there is no salt content in the water and there is excess of water available. Animals which excrete ammonia as their major nitrogenous waste products are called ammonotelic. For example, fishes, protozoans, sponges, these are marines, coelenterate, these are marines, echinoderms, crustaceans, these all are marines, platyhelminthes or marines, cnidarians and poriferians. These all are ammonotelic. They release their nitrogenous waste in the form of ammonia. Now we will discuss the ureotelic organisms. Those organisms which release their nitrogenous waste in the form of urea. Now those organisms which have less fresh water available, such as some marine organisms and all terrestrial organisms, they remove their most of the nitrogenous waste in the form of urea. As there is less water available, so they cannot afford to lose water in the process of excretion. So they will convert their ammonia into urea through the use of energy. They can afford to use energy, but they cannot afford to lose water. So they will convert their ammonia into urea through the use of energy, and then they will utilize just 50 ml of water for removal of 1 gram of nitrogen as a urea. So they excrete their excretory product, their nitrogenous waste, in the form of urea. Now urea is comparatively less toxic than the ammonia. It is 1 lakh times less toxic than urea. And just 50 ml of water is required to dilute nitrogen to the non-toxic level. Now those animals which are ureotelic, which release urea as their major excretory product, those are cartilaginous fish, similarly few bony fishes, adult amphibians and mammals including human. Remember, humans also excrete urea as their major excretory product. Now the third category, that is the uric acid. Those organisms which release their waste products, nitrogenous waste as uric acid, those are called, uric acid is basically a fibrin which is least toxic among the three. It is the least toxic because the most toxic is ammonia, then the urea, and the least toxic, that is the uric acid. And it precipitates out from the solution. It is deposited in the solid form from the solution. Now 1 gram of nitrogen in the form of uric acid just requires 1 ml of water for its excretion. So this is very less amount of water required for the excretion of nitrogenous waste as a uric acids. So those organisms which have very scarce, very limited supply of water, they will prefer to release their nitrogenous waste in the form of uric acid. Two groups, terrestrial invertebrates and egg-laying vertebrates, they have major water loss problems. Water is in a very limited amount available to them, so they have evolved to excrete uric acid as their excretory product. The uricotelic animals include lizard, some insects and birds. They have less availability of water, very limited availability of water, so they release uric acid as their major nitrogenous waste product. Now this is a tabulated form of these three. Ammonia produced with little energy, very little energy, ammonia, but more water is required. Water is required. Disadvantages: this is toxic in concentration. In high concentration, it is toxic solution, must be excreted in a lot of water. Excreted by marine fish, water, invertebrates, bony fishes, amphibian, etc., etc. Similarly, urea is comparatively less toxic than ammonia and less water is required. It requires a little more energy to produce it. In the land and the sea, both urea is excreted as a waste product by animals. Adult amphibians, turtles, mammals and bony fishes are an example. Similarly, uric acid, very little water is excreted. It requires very least amount of water. It requires considerable energy to produce it. So in this case, little water is utilized but more energy is utilized. And usually terrestrial organisms excrete uric acid as a major excretory product. Reptile, birds, insects, land gastropods, etc. These are examples. Now we will move towards this diagram. We have already discussed that when proteins are broken down, first they are broken down to amino acids. Similarly, nucleic acids are broken down to nitrogenous base. First, they are broken down to nucleotides and then nitrogenous bases are removed. Both of these amino acids and nitrogenous bases, when they are broken down, so amino group, NH2 group is released. This is then converted either to ammonia or it will be converted to uric acid or urea. These are the three categories. So those organisms which have very high availability of water, they will convert the amino group to ammonia. Those which have moderate availability of water, they will convert it to urea. And those which have scarce amount of water available, they will convert it to uric acid. This is all about today's topic. Inshallah, next time see you with a new topic. Take care. Allah Hafiz.